Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this December meeting of the Boston Art Commission. My name is Karen Goodfellow, and I'm the Director of Public Art in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. In that capacity, I'm also the Director of the Boston Art Commission. Let's all take a moment to update our names and pronouns and make sure we are muted. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Art Commission, the public can join this meeting through telephone and video conferencing. For those of you with us today, this meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is available. You can access it at the bottom of the screen. If you have trouble locating the button, please chat us for assistance. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone for free. We engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people. We acknowledge the continuing presence of the Massachusetts as well as the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We also recognize the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents, in addition to those in the diaspora. For transparency and community input, artworks proposed for City of Boston property are reviewed and discussed at these public meetings of the Boston Art Commission on a regular, usually monthly basis. Working together with the public art team in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the BAC is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 volunteer community members appointed by the mayor. The BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks intended to be added to the city's collection or to be placed on city property. Our meetings are generally held on the second Tuesday of every month, and we hope that you will continue to join us. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture has a dedicated public art team that manages all daily operations and duties related to the public art projects cited on or proposed for city property. This team facilitates the BAC's monthly public meetings and manages all phases of Boston's public art projects in collaboration with the BAC, community members, and colleagues at the City of Boston. Helping to facilitate this meeting are Sarah Rodrigo, Senior Public Art Project Manager, and Amber Torres, Public Art Project Manager. And you can reach out to us with any questions or comments at bac@boston.gov, which we will be adding to the chat. And I'll pass to Mark.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Welcome, everyone. I'm calling this public hearing to order at 4:36 p.m. Today, the Boston Art Commission will be holding its monthly public meeting. I will now take roll call of the commissioners to confirm a quorum. After I state your name, commissioners, please say here. I'll begin with Vice Chair Equa Holmes.
Here.
Camilo Alvarez.
Here.
John Andrus.
Here.
Michael Canizzo.
Here.
Cara Elliott Ortega.
Here.
Robert Freeman.
Here.
Brian Hone.
Here.
And Kim Pinder.
Here.
Great. So we have not only a quorum, but full attendance. Very exciting. So on the next slide, you will see today's agenda. The full agenda is publicly posted on the city's website, boston.gov. We will now review meeting minutes from the November 8th meeting of the Boston Art Commission. Are there any comments or modifications any commissioner would like to make? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion, Mark, that we accept the minutes as they stand from last month's meeting.
Great, thanks, Equa. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Camilo. I'll read down your names, and if you agree with the motion, please say yes. Equa?
Yes.
Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. Next up, I'll pass back to Karen.
Thank you, Chair Pasnick. We have 6 presentations on our agenda for review today. We have artist selection for Copley Square Park public art projects, the restoration of the child fountain in the public garden by the Friends of the Public Garden, Final acceptance of Turmoil by Sobek at the Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library. Final acceptance of Afro-Latin Music and Dance by Roberto Chao in Mozart Park in Jamaica Plain. Final acceptance of Natural Beauty by Jillian Rosati at Ringer Park in Allston. And finally, Signage for the Embrace by Hank Willis Thomas for the Boston Common, and the related moratorium on artworks, signage, and plaques for the Boston Common. We have a few updates about long-term commissions. Turmoil by Sobek at the Roxbury branch of the BPL is being presented tonight for final acceptance. We're also planning an artist talk at the branch in mid-January and look forward to sharing more information about that soon. Simon Donovan and Ben Olmsted installed the Creative on December 9th in front of the newly opened Boston Arts Academy in Fenway. You can see a photo of that from that installation on the right. Installation of The Embrace by Hank Willis Thomas was completed on Sunday, December 11th. Both of these projects will be presented for review for final acceptance in the new year, along with Memory Diffusion by Masari. Continuing with commissioning projects, The Eyes of the Future by Yuki Lee for City Hall Plaza, and the plaza officially opened on Friday, November 18th. Both Yuki and Ria Vedro, the artist commissioned for the new North Entrance artwork, were able to attend. Ria hosted a mark-making event that was very popular and generated a lot of excitement about her upcoming artwork. On the right, you can see photos of both artists, one of Yuki's installed artworks, and people making marks on metal feathers that will be included in Ria's sculpture. And we're looking forward to presenting that design in the new year. And I will say it was a very cool day, and we're super appreciative of all they did. And Cara made great remarks about it that day on the plaza as well. Also in tonight's presentations, we have the artist selection for the new artworks and for Copley Square Park, and the request for proposals for mural consultant closed on Friday, December 8th. We received a strong response and look forward to introducing the selected consultant to the commission as soon as possible in the new year. Aside from the presentations later in this meeting for the renovation of the child fountains next year, we do not have any collections projects to report. We are anticipating releasing the House Doctor RFP in the new year. And we have posted a new position for the public art team at the public art registrar. So you can see a screenshot of the listing on the City of Boston's job portal, along with a link to the listing. We're looking for a highly organized and detail-oriented team member who will lead on administration of ArtSide and this commission, among other duties. And I think Sarah added the job posting there. Please share. And with that, I will pass back to you, Mark.
Great, thank you, Karen. We will now move on to items on the agenda for review, public testimony, and commission vote. On the screen, you can see how you can participate in today's meeting. During the meeting, please keep yourself muted. If you have technical difficulties during the meeting, you can ask questions in the chat and a member of staff will help you. After presentations and clarifying questions from the commissioners, the chair and vice chair, myself, and Ekwa will invite public testimony. If you'd like to participate, you can press the raise your hand icon and staff will put you in a digital line for comment. You can also let staff know that you have a question in the chat. If you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. Please remember to keep your comments on topic and brief. Ekwa, do you want to read the next one?
Sure. As usual, our goal is to make this meeting a good experience for all, so that all community members feel comfortable sharing their feedback and questions. Be mindful and respectful of other people's time when speaking so that all participants have time and feel comfortable adding their comments. If you need to submit longer written testimony, please go to bac@boston.gov and leave your longer testimony there. And while you may disagree with other attendees' testimony, please don't interrupt them during their allotted time. Keep questions and comments project specific. If you are called upon, please state your name, title, program, and organization. Now, I'll also want to mention that this is the last meeting of the year. And so for all of you that are here, we're happy to end the season out with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ekwa. The next presentation for review is artist selection for the Copley Square Park Public Art. Amber Torres will present. Amber?
Thank you, Mark. Next slide, please. For the Copley Square Park Public Art Project, we're looking to commission artworks that will create a welcoming space for communal gathering at the soon-to-be renovated Copley Square. The artworks will express communal solidarity and response to violence, and will prioritize the experiences of people across all neighborhoods of Boston so that they can gather and reflect. Through this call, we have several opportunities for artists to bring poetry, light projections, pavers and walkways, and a small sculpture series to the park. Poets will not be required to oversee the installation of their work, but will be included in the installation process. And I'll add a link to the call to artists to the chat. And while I move over to the chat. Awesome. The theme emerged during the One Boston Resilience Project, which we call OBRP. OBRP was a 4-month-long community engaged process that began in 2018 and was held to get community input on an artwork honoring the resilience of Bostonians after the marathon bombings in 2013. Following the bombings, the city made a commitment to create an artwork in response to the tragedy, which led to the One Boston Resilience Project. The process included listening sessions in Back Bay, Jamaica Plain, East Boston, and Dorchester, open community meetings, digital outreach, creative and participatory activities in multiple languages, and an online survey. Through the OBRP process, the city considered ways to recognize the impact of violence and loss in our lives and how we build resilience, not just as individuals, but as a community. Ultimately, we learned that residents want an artwork to be a welcoming space for communal gathering, a space for individual reflection and contemplation, incorporating trees and green space and evoking the emotions of empathy, unity, and acknowledgement of loss. And you can read the full report on our website, and I'll also move on to the chat so I can drop the link there. Next slide, please. Copley Square is currently undergoing a major redesign effort led by the landscape architects, Sasaki, who are consultants on that project. And the art will be installed in this new setting. Many of the existing park program areas will be part of this new design, which includes a revitalized fountain, new lawn areas, a spacious plaza, lush gardens, and a new raised platform, allowing people to gather among the existing trees and enjoy different views of the park. The artworks will be installed during the renovation, and artists will need to carefully coordinate with the Copley Square Park design team and the Boston Parks and Recreation Department, because failure to meet the project deadlines would result in the removal of the artworks from the project. And for context, the park currently contains 5 existing artworks: the tortoise and the hare, the Khalil Gibran Memorial, the Boston Marathon Centennial Monument, the statue of John Singleton Copley, and the Daniel J. Ahern Jr. Memorial. There are several renderings of the renovated park on our website, so I'll just drop a link in our chat so you guys can find more information there. Last week, the public art team and working group members interviewed several amazing artists in each category, paying special attention to each artist's use and approach to scale, collaboration, and their consideration of the theme. And though it was not an easy decision, we are recommending Adam Frank, Tori Fair, Jessica Grant, Diana Weissman, and Danielle LaGrosse-Georges for the Copley Square Park Public Art Project, with the potential for 2 additional poetry opportunities for the other top scored poets pending identified sites. I'm going to take the next few minutes to present each artist's initial concepts and work samples. Some of the artists might be joining us here today as well, so just stay tuned for that. Adam Frank is an artist, inventor, and product designer. His body of work represents an ongoing investigation of light, interactivity, and our perception of nature. Adam's work uses new techniques to add natural lighting effects to the modern built environment. Adam has also created 3 product lines that use light in new ways. A little bit about Adam's concept, and again, these are initial concepts just so that we can get an idea of where artists, what direction artists are going in, and we understand that with engagement and the development of this project that these concepts might evolve. But the initial concept is he proposes is to mount permanent outdoor rated global projectors on many of the light posts in Copley Square Park. These lights will illuminate the ground in many places. The projections will carefully recreate the shadows that would be cast if people of diverse ages and backgrounds were in the projection light. These disembodied human shadows will appear to be standing on the park paths and sitting on park benches. The installation will allow park goers to have the unprecedented experiences of being able to step into other people's shadows. If you go to the next slide, you could see examples from that Adam Frank submitted with their application. Just take a moment to take those in, observe the work, and get an idea of Adam's work. And then we're going to go forward and talk about the next art. If you can go to the next slide, excuse me, thank you. For small sculptures, we are recommending Tori Fair. Tori Fair lives and works in the Boston area. Her work has been reviewed in the New York Times, the Boston Globe, Sculpture Magazine, and Boston Art Review, among others. She has been the recipient of prestigious awards from the Joan Mitchell Foundation, the Paula Krasner Foundation, the LEF Foundation, and the Mass Cultural Council. She received her BA from Harvard University in Cambridge and her MFA from Mass Art in Boston. Fair is an associate professor of sculpture at Brandeis University. And I just want to read directly from the screen so you can get an idea of the initial concept for Tori's work. A public aspect of my work started with an intergenerational dialogue with Mary Miss, a pioneering ecofeminist artist from the 70s. Miss prioritized breathing space, human scale, and firsthand experience. Taking the fragile beauty of a bloom and casting it in the industrial ruggedness of rubber, bronze, and various resins is a way to express a larger dynamic with our surroundings. The flowers take on an aggressive yet approachable presence when transformed into sculpture. And I'll stop reading there. We can go on to the next slide and look at a few examples of Tori's work. Thank you. Next slide. For pavers and walkways, there was actually a consensus in the review group, and we are recommending Jessica Grant and Diana Weisman. For 20 years, I'll speak about each artist separately. First, Diana. For 20 years, Diana Weisman has been working with clients across various industries such as Comedy Central, Disney, Ford, the MoMA, and the Washington Post. Currently, she is director of custom type at Type Network, where she manages the production of bespoke font families. She is the sole proprietor of Kearns & Cairns, her digital foundry. Jessica Grant is an experiential graphic designer who is passionate about typography and custom pattern design. Jessica loves making these elements come together to transform an environment's sense of place and purpose. In her 18 years as a graphic designer, she has worked on a wide variety of rewarding projects, including interpretive graphics, wall graphics, exhibits, signage, and logos. And for their concept, Jessica and Diana wanted to create a walkway art installation that combines a strong message, language, custom lettering, and pattern design. They envisioned working with the city and community on a short, poignant message that will be translated into multiple languages. This message will be drawn as a custom font that ties directly to the site and the theme. And if you go to the next slide, we can see some examples of their work. Next slide, please. On this page, you could take a moment to just see some examples from Jessica Grant design. Next slide, please. And a few examples from Kearns & Cairns. And last but not least, if you go to the next slide, please, we are going to present our recommendation for poetry, who is Danielle Legros Georges. Danielle is a Haitian-born US poet and translator whose early creative work centered Haitian and Black diasporic culture. In 2015, Danielle was appointed by the city of Boston as the first poet laureate for a term of 4 years, generating new opportunities for education, awareness, and the promotion of literacy through poetry, amplifying the great literary work taking place in Boston, and bringing poetry to listeners and readers less familiar with its possibilities. There's also the potential for 2 additional poetry opportunities, which I've mentioned, pending identified sites. But a little bit about Danielle's concept, if I can just read off of the page. Connection to site, excuse me, let's see here. I'm looking for one concept in particular that I think is strong, but let me just read 2 of the possible concepts. One idea is a poem cast or carved in such a way as to have its appearance affected by the movement of the sun. It's one concept. Another concept or idea is to have a poem written into the bottom of the fountain's reflecting pool. what I was trying to look for in this concept, and I'm not finding it right this moment, is Danielle's desire to, her inspiration in words that are written on the library across from the park, which say free to all, and interpreting what that means in her poetry. Next slide, please. Just wanted to have all of the names and some examples of the artist's artwork on one page before I wrap up. This is the end of the presentation, so I want to say thank you all for listening. Thank you to any artists who were able to make it today. Thank you to everyone who applied to this opportunity and to the community for all of your work. I welcome any questions from the public and commissioners. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Amber. This is exciting. I think the square is definitely in need of these brilliant artists' work in the future. I think it'll be a real great addition to that public space to have each of these artists represented. And just a word, I heard our poet laureate at the opening of City Hall Plaza, was just blown away by her. So I think it's great to see that her words will be etched somewhere in another city plaza going forward.
It's a different poet laureate, though.
Oh, no. Okay.
One who won the one.
The second. Okay, well, maybe we need to find an opportunity for
Yeah,
her.
we'll commission Portia for another one.
All right, so let me open it up to questions from commissioners.
Just want to clarify. So the existing 5 pieces will remain in the square, and then these will be added to those. Is that what I understand?
These will be additional artworks in the park as well. Yeah. Not necessarily in direct dialogue, I don't think yet, but these pieces are about the space and the interaction that they pretty much encourage in the public. And so that's a different purpose, I think, and intention in these artworks.
And then Amber, I understand it also said that the current 5 may be relocated depending on how the final design. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, and Sarah, Karen, feel free to jump in. I believe that a few months ago, there was a presentation to relocate those pieces, and they are in fixed positions. Feel free to jump in, Karen, Sarah, if you have a different recollection. But
Yes, that's right, Amber. They, the Boston Parks and Recreation Department presented, I believe, in July or August of this year, for the relocations of the 5 existing artworks in the park. And we can reshare that presentation for context, if that would be helpful.
maybe not. So, and do you have to get permission by, I'm assuming if the artist is still living, you need to get permission from the artist in order to allow the relocation?
They had worked with, I know, I think they'd worked directly with Nancy Shern, and I think they had worked with Jean Gibran, who is the widow of the artist of the Khalil Gibran piece. I can't remember who else they had worked with, but they were doing that due diligence when we checked that with them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just remember coming across that years ago when we were working on the visitor center on the common. So
Yeah, we're meeting with Parks to reconnect on this project later this week, so we can follow up and make sure.
thanks.
I have one question, Amber, terrific presentation. Did I miss the timeline for this this program? Are we thinking in the spring, or will we be working on this?
That's a good
further this
question.
year?
I did not include the timeline. Thank you for pointing that out. My understanding, and we do have this check-in with Parks on Friday, so I'll have more clarity, but the construction is looking to begin after the anniversary, sometime around May.
Okay.
2023. Feel free to jump in, Karen, Sarah, if that's not correct.
Yeah, I think that's right. We know there are often delays, so if that would be the soonest.
Thank you.
You know.
Amber, thank you so much. On a night like this, looking outside my office window when it's getting dark so early, I think the light pieces and installations will be a great way to activate Copley Square and to attract visitors in the evenings. I'm curious if we know at this point if the selected artist will have an installation that will have some portion of artwork that's viewable during the day, or if this really is meant to activate the evening space.
I think I'll jump in here if it's okay. I think we'll be asking the artists to connect with the full design team first before doing anything. So they did share concepts, but we don't have clarity on what.
That's fine. I was just curious. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, any other questions or comments from commissioners? Hearing none, wonder if any members of the public would like to make a statement at this time? Margaret? You can unmute yourself and
I think
make your
am
comment.
I unmuted?
Yes, please introduce yourself and then make your comment.
My name is Margaret Picorni. I was on the original Friends of Copley Square when this park design was installed. And I was very involved in the installation of the Copley statue. And I know that the other statues in the park are in pretty good shape, but the Copley statue, since it was installed in 2002, has really been neglected. And I don't know if this falls under the Arts Commission purview or if Karen can track this somehow, but the statue is really in need of restoration, repatination, just some tender loving care. And I know it's going to be repositioned in this design, and I think that's great. It will be in a better place, hopefully. And I think all of these new artworks that will come into the square are so really inspirational and really important. And I think those of us that were around when this all got started are really glad to see this redesign and rededication of the park. So thank you very much for all the hard work I know that went into this.
Great, thanks for your input. Karen, do you want to say a word about the piece? Do we know any status?
Yeah, we believe they're being cleaned, but we'll follow up on that as well. And that's something we can, if it's not already scheduled, put on our list of artworks with work to be done on them. Yes.
And just so you're aware, Margaret, that is within our purview. We are responsible for maintaining artworks. That's something that the Art Commission is, it's under our purview.
That's good to hear. Before this process started, I did have a conservator who was working with the Friends of the Public Garden come and take a look at it. And they did an analysis and they did a document that I did submit to the committee. So there is, I've been dabbling in this for a while. So I'm really glad to hear that it's in your wheelhouse. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks for the comment. Any other comments from the public? Hearing none, I wonder if I have a motion to, how do we phrase this? I guess, accept the, how do we phrase this, Amber? These are selected artists, accept the recommendations of the Arts Committee to be commissioned as artists for Copley Square.
It sounds good.
All right. Anybody want to make that motion? I suppose I just did, so I'll make that motion officially.
I'll
Okay.
second that motion, Margaret.
Great. Thank you, Aqua. I will read off your name, and if you agree with the motion, please say yes. Aqua,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Strong group.
Camilo,
Definitely, yes.
John,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes,
Tara,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. Thank you so much, Amber, for all you've been doing. You thanked everybody else, but we need to definitely thank you for your great presentation and for all the work that you've done to bring these artists to Copley Square.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Mark.
Okay,
Thanks,
Aqua, do you want to do the next one?
Sure. Our next conversation is about the restoration of the child fountains in the public garden by the Friends of the Public Garden. And Sarah Rodrigo will introduce the project.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The Friends of the Public Garden submitted this proposal for renovations to the child fountains in the public garden as part of their ongoing work, caring for the artworks in the Boston Common, Public Garden, and Commonwealth Avenue Mall. This proposal was also submitted to the Boston Landmarks Commission and presented at their November 22nd meeting. Landmarks approved the work, but noted that it still requires review by this commission. And so now I'll turn this over to, I believe it's Bob Mulcahy, who's going to start us off. And there's a team here to present this proposal. Welcome, Bob.
Sarah, thank you. I'm going to
Oh,
start.
Liz, great. Sorry.
That's okay. Wonderful to be here. My name is Liz Visa. I'm president of Friends of the Public Garden. And yes, here we are. So we're very excited to bring this proposal to the city, to the Landmarks Commission, as Sarah said, now to you. It's one of our 3 anniversary projects to celebrate 50 years, and now it's 52 years of working with the city to care for the Boston Common, the Public Garden, Commonwealth Avenue Mall. And in the garden, it is our proposal here, and very excited about this project, to renovate the major entrance into this iconic space, the Arlington Street entrance. I can't tell you how many people have asked me, why aren't those fountains working? And now they're going to be working, because we have reclaimed this space. We are going to be transforming it with restoring the fountains, renovating the entrance, and making it a more welcoming place, and as it should be, the level of iconic nature this entrance has. And if you go to the next slide, I'll just review some of the goals of the project and then pass it on to Bob. So again, returning the visual prominence of these fountains, they were really important elements from the very beginning of the garden. They have been, you'll hear more from Bob about the sculptures inside of them and the evolution of those over the years, but enhancing this visitor experience when you go into this major entrance that 7 million people a year move through. You want this to be an exciting and a welcoming space. Some practical things, it's not about the sculpture, but just so you know, we're going to be lessening the fountain's water depth to enhance their safety. We have been doing fountains for a long time, and the most important thing is making recirculating. The old fountains were not recirculating water. They do need to be for curtain codes and recharging them on site, keeping them out of the city's stormwater system. So again, that's going to be a really important part of caring for these fountains, is upgrading their systems. We will be adding lighting. We've been lighting a lot of the sculptures in our 3 parks. We're very excited to be lighting the sculptures down the Commonwealth Avenue Mall, and now we're going to be lighting these fountains. So you'll see some of that when Bob and Rich Houghton from Halverson presents. And the area at the entrance has become overgrown and leggy. And again, this is our public garden, but you don't get that sense of the beauty of it, because we have some overgrown yews in the entrance, and we're going to be doing a good job of changing that landscape and improving that landscape, so that all of this space in the entrance is a welcoming, exciting place to come in and enjoy this space. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Bob to talk about some history, and he and Rich will be doing the presentation together from now.
Thank you, Sarah, for advancing the slide, and thank you for hearing this presentation, Commission, and thank you, Liz. So I'm just going to go over the history, and Rich is going to talk about the landscape elements of the design. So he and I are going to play a little ping pong back and forth through the rest of this presentation. So we have a view of the garden circa 1875. We say circa 1875 because off in the distance you see the public garden tool shed where the Boston Parks and Recreation staff are housed. Notice the Lagoon Bridge in George Washington, that they're positioned on the same elevation. Also notice the strong connection between the 2 fountains and how the fountain's coping stones are raised. These fountains are part of really some of the initial features being laid in the garden in 1861. These 2 are one of, at the time, 5 fountains, when only which of 4 currently exist. Next slide, please. So here we have a shot from 1870, looking west. Really what we're highlighting is the exposed granite coping stone of the fountain. There's a sister slide to this showing the fountain to the north. and it really shows the exact same condition. Next slide. So in the very beginning, there weren't any sculptures in either one of these fountains. They were just a water feature. However, by 1870, the image on the left, the Venus, or the Maid of the Mist, was installed. And it was a risque piece for the time. And there's plenty of news and news articles, of how people liked or disliked this. It was a rotating cast of sculptures compared to what we see today. In 1932, by Anna Coleman Ladd, was a temporary sculpture exhibit within all the existing fountains at the time. And as you see here this is on the north fountain, St. Francis with the bird. And curiously enough, this in the middle image, in the summer of 1901, there was a number of news articles of alligators being placed in the fountains. And so these fountains have done many things over the years, but the art has always stood true. Next slide, please. Both of these images are from 1945. On the left, you see the small child, and on the right, you see the boy and the bird. So I referenced it in an earlier image in the importance of the Lagoon Bridge in George Washington and those installations in 1867 and 1869. And the elevation that those were placed at forever changed the garden and really introduced hills to the garden. And what you see here is really a reaction. If you see the coping stones that are sunken now, people had to traverse through this garden. There wasn't paving in the garden. So during mud seasons, that's what you had to walk through, and boardwalks were placed. And so because the central spine between Arlington and Charles Street was such a heavily traversed pathway, there was a decision made in the 1930s to begin to raise this slowly. And now you have this feature between that really eliminates the prominence of these two pieces of art in terms of the fountains themselves and that sunken nature that we all experience. Next slide, please. And here I'm going to just hand over more details of the landscape design to Rich Houghton.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you, everyone, for your time. This is a plan view of our proposed landscape design. Arlington Street is toward the page bottom, and the George Washington statue is toward the top of the page. So we've made a few small adjustments to improve the landscape design in relation to these fountains. For example, we've introduced benches on the western sides of the fountain nodes to provide a place to sit and appreciate these sculptures in the fountains. We've also made some very minor adjustments to the pathways to improve circulation, but not change the overall circulation patterns. So we've really just tried to improve some of the minor adjustments to the layout of the pathways, but again, not creating any new circulation patterns. We are proposing to raise and elevate the fountains themselves, so to remove the existing coping, reconstruct the fountain mechanical and electrical and place them at a higher elevation, which we will show in further slides. But in this plan view, we're also showing our paving materials. So we're looking to match the existing condition along the edge pathways to the north and to the south, being bituminous concrete. We're looking to replace the primary pathway that goes through the spine of the site and around the outside of the fountains to be exposed aggregate concrete to replace the existing chip seal, as the chip seal material is no longer available and also is not as an accessible paving material. So we're looking to replace it with a similar aesthetic, but with an improved material for that pathway. We're also enhancing the plantings along the Arlington Street Gateway in a complementary way to other areas of the public garden. Next slide, please. Here's an example of some of the test pit investigations on the left side of the page where we exposed the fountain coping and came to the realization that it has a finished, the side on the outside is finished. So we're looking to, in our proposed condition, expose some more of that coping to be able to appreciate the original intent for that to be visible, which Bob had shown in some of the earlier historic slides. So on the left side here, we're showing the current condition with the fountain pool very low in relation to the surrounding landscape. On the right side is our proposed condition, which we're looking to raise the floor of the pool. We're looking to raise the coping, and the relationship between the top of the sculpture and the top of the coping in our proposed condition is to remain the same. So we're raising everything in concert. Next slide, please. Here's the an existing condition as we're seeing the fountains in their current condition being depressed within the landscape. In these views, you can also see the existing cobble paving material that's surrounding the fountain coping, as well as in the pool of the fountain. We're looking to replace that cobble paving material and fountain floor paving material with an exposed aggregate paving. As again, that's an improved material that's more accessible. And we're going to separate that exposed aggregate paving color with a granite band. And then the outside of that would be this exposed aggregate color that's a pink to match the to match the aesthetic of the chip seal paving. Next slide, please. To get into a bit more detail of the fountain basin detailing, as mentioned, we're looking to expose the existing granite coping by raising the basin and raising the coping in relation to the surrounding paving. We are the water depth, our proposed water depth in our new condition is approximately 14 inches in depth, which is less than the current condition. And we're looking to reset the sculpture with the top of the sculpture at the same relationship to the top of the coping as exists today. We're not looking to change the aesthetic of the water display, but we are replacing the mechanical system to be able to be recirculating and improving the water quality. And we're also replacing the nozzles and being able to more finely tune the display to match the original intent, where a lot of the spigots right now are not functioning properly, and it's really not in an operable condition right now. With that, I'd like to pass it back to Bob for any final comments on the landscape design and to speak more about the specifics of the sculptures.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. So here we have two images, the boy and the bird. What you're seeing on both of these, the boy and the bird and the small child, these were initially placed in the 1930s and 1934. The last time there was any renovation, to the fountains themselves was really in the 1970s, about 1975. But as Rich pointed out, we're not looking to change the art itself, anything dealing with the bronze or the bowls and the pedestal and the granite plinth. During construction, both pieces of art, and you can go to the next slide too, just so we can show the small child, will be under the care of Daedalus Conservation Art. really what these slides show is that anyone that has passed by these fountains is that at any given time during the warm season, these fountains could be full, they could be half full, they could be completely empty. And that is one of the major reasons why, as Liz pointed out, that we're undertaking this particular project. So next slide, please. So in terms of the actual art conservation, these images were taken in 2004 at the Daedalus studio in Watertown. We just want to make everyone aware that the team in Daedalus is aware of how the sculptures are removed, and from the granite units. These were in the studio to create molds after a theft of one of the pieces. Next slide, please. So really key details, and this image on the right is of the boy and the bird. And Rich indicated that the plumbing is going to be changed out with new spray heads that can allow for a little finer adjustment, but to certainly replicate the spray patterns that everyone sees when these are operating. The small child fountain itself is a much simpler plumbing, where since it only really has one spray feature in terms of the bubbling that comes up from the bronze stone. So both pieces of art will be under the care of Daedalus during the full construction process. The bronze and granite units will be removed and stored at their Watertown, Massachusetts studio. The fountains will have new copper piping installed and new spray heads. The intent is to replicate the existing spray patterns of both the fountains as we see today. Once the fountain systems are newly installed and the basins are ready, the granite units and sculptures will be reinstalled and the plumbing connections made. And I've already described what the image is. So next slide. So Liz had mentioned we're also going to be lighting the art. Earlier in the year, we did a lighting mock-up, and the intent is to place 4 of the submersible fixtures in 4 perimeter locations around the basin bowl. Even though this doesn't show it because the fountain wasn't fully operational, we couldn't get the water height, even though we waited all day, up to the right level to submerge these fixtures. But the intent is not to have the fixtures visible, but sitting flush in the new basin floor with a louvered grate over them, so they could be accessed for any type of maintenance. But again, really, as the image shows on the right, is the intent is not to have these fully visible. What this created was a really soft splashing of light that showed beautiful details of the granite, the bronze, and the water spray. There's an awful lot of light. This image was probably taken at about 9:30 at night in May, and the amount of ambient light in the area, it's really incredible when you're there and everything is really quiet, and just focusing on light, how much light there really is. But it did transform how you see this art at night. And so we're excited about this presentation of light. And next slide. And Liz, I believe I hand it back to you.
Sure. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Rich. This is where we are. This is the work we've been doing over the last couple of years, making sure we understand the systems and the topography and the grading and the planting and the paving. As Rich said, we're looking to replicate, but with a better surface, the existing special paving that moves across this central spine. So there's been a lot of thinking about history and preservation as well as restoration. So we're very excited about this project. We hope to be able to go into construction this next year, and we look forward to your questions. So I'll hand it back to you, Mark.
I think Aqua was running this one, right, Aqua?
Okay, yes. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. I learned so much That's one of my favorite places in the city of Boston, so I'm excited to see this renovation going on. I want to open the floor to commissioners who may have questions and comments to make. I'm sure they're all excited about this renovation as well as I.
Yeah, I'll echo your comments, Ekwa, and just mention that my parents got engaged in that space, not very far from, and they're now 55 years married. So it's a good to see it being renovated, maybe for the second time since they got married.
Wow, that's wonderful. I want to make sure I can see any hands that are going up. No questions is the sign of a very thorough, oh, I see Bob's hand. Bob.
I just have really a comment first, and what a wonderful presentation, and I love the history that I've walked through this area many times and never really knew the history of these fountains. So thank you very much. The question I had is, and it's probably one of just bad memory, you showed a picture of the Venus, and is the Venus a sculpture and not a fountain? And will there be any work or restoration done or needed for the Venus?
A great question. So it was a sculpture. It's a marble. A Venus. She was marble, and there was yeah. You can see right below her is the spray feature for the fountain. There's a ring. Probably a piece of pipe with multiple jets along it, and that was the feature itself. And then it does appear, that there may have been, it might be the image, but some spray features that come up from that oyster shell, or scallop shell maybe. So now, where is she? That is the $1 million question. I've heard a rumor that that she's at an estate up in Ipswich. I'm not sure. There may be some folks here that might be able to collaborate that. But we really don't know at what period this piece of art actually, was removed from the garden.
Thank you.
Well, that begs the question, is the St. Francis sculpture still there?
No, and in fact, as Bob was saying, it was sort of like a rotating exhibit of sculpture during that early
temporary. Okay, gotcha.
And then when the Boy and the Bird and the small child came in, that became the permanent display.
It's a cool idea to have temporary pieces, though.
Absolutely. And my question was along those lines. I wonder if once the restored Boy and Bird and Little Child can be placed so they allow for the potentiality to be replaced as a temporary exhibit. If so, maybe future commissioners might want to do that.
And how long, is there time between all this work that gets done to do something temporary?
Well, it's going to be in construction, so there'll be construction fencing, and there'll be a lot of mess in the site, and no one's going to be able to go in. So when these two pieces are off in Daedalus' studio, happily, safely there and being restored, it really won't be a place that will be, available for temporary art. But it's a great question.
Awesome. Anyone else have thoughts or questions?
I was wondering if this could be an educational piece. I know you talked about fencing and everything. Is there any discussion about a wrap or something to be placed on the construction fencing, sort of going over the history of these two fountains and sort of give an idea of what's going on?
It'd be great, Michael. We do like to make people aware, and I think you guys remember when the Shaw 54th work was being done, we had that 700 linear feet of the history of the regiment and the Civil War and Augusta St. Gaudens. That was such an incredibly popular thing. It's now in our storage locker, and we'd love to figure out a way to bring that back out and have people see it again. But yes, when we have the fencing up, we will have a sign and we'll make it, there's so much history in these places, just to be able to reveal that. is a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I think that'd be important to have that as a piece there, an educational piece. And
Yeah.
because as we know, people will be wondering and calling and what's going on. And so I think to
Well,
sort of damp down any fears that this is removing these, I think will
Yes.
also be helpful.
That's right.
I mean, the beautiful images used in the presentation would be ideal too.
Yeah, thank you. That's just a great idea.
I had a question that was really generated by these past comments, and that is, you know, the potential for the future of installing other sculptures there that may be currently in storage that that Boston owns.
Yeah, and it's a good question, you know, back to you about the whole nature of the moratorium and new art in the Common Garden and Mall, because every time someone does want a new piece of art, they want it in the Common, the Garden, and the Mall. So there has been a moratorium for quite a while about new art in these places. So it is, you know, it is a very popular place. It's a place people aspire to having art in. It's a wonderful place that, you know, we take care of 42 pieces of public art in these 3 parks.
Wow.
It is your largest collection of art in the city. So definitely a wonderful place to display art, no question about it.
Well, that'd be something interesting to review. What is in storage for starters?
I'll just say I don't think we have much as much as people might think.
Okay.
But we are commissioning new pieces all across the city and hoping to do a lot more short-term installations and in all sites across the city. But to the point of the moratorium, I just want to note that we didn't need to address that for this since we weren't making any additions here.
So do we need to have a motion to allow them to complete this work? I guess that's sort of what's at stake right now.
Yeah.
Is that true? Before we do that, just formally open up the floor to the public who may have, who are attending and who may have questions or comments. I see Barbara. Did I see your hand go up? If you can unmute yourself, Barbara. You're still muted. Barbara.
Sarah, can you unmute her?
I've asked her to unmute, but it doesn't seem to be.
Barbara, do you want to chat your question? Can you put it in the chat, perhaps?
Barbara, in your window, if you go up to the upper right-hand corner of your little picture window, you'll see put your cursor there. There's a blue box with 3 dots. Oh, that didn't work for me. All right, how does she unmute? Lower left-hand corner? Where it says mute?
Yeah, the mute button on the lower left corner.
No. Well, if not, if you could put your question or comment in the chat, is that something that you feel comfortable doing?
I will say, I think that it is Bobby Moore, who's the chairwoman of the Public Garden Committee of the Friends, and I'm assuming she's going to be supportive of the project, but I can't speak for her.
Okay.
Would you give us a thumbs up if you're in support of this project?
Okay, awesome.
There we go.
Well, Barbara, would be happy to hear your comment or question at a later time, but are you comfortable with us moving forward with a motion? Thumbs up on a motion? Okay, great. So we're looking for a motion to accept this work going forward to renovate the 2 fountains in the public garden?
I so move with the maybe addition as presented today.
As presented today. Can I get a
I'll
second
second
on that? Okay, awesome, Camilo. All right, taking the roll call, all in favor, say yes. Brian Hone,
Yes.
John Andres,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Robert Freeman,
Yes.
Cara,
Yes.
Camilo,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes unanimously, and we are excited about the future of these renovations. Thank you all so much for coming in and presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll let you,
Thank
my
you,
parents know
Commissioner.
that you're fixing the things that that mark their their moment of engagement.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It looks like Barbara was able to unmute
I
herself.
was just about to say,
Oh.
Barbara,
Yes, I'm so sorry for this, but I just wanted to say that the Friends of the Public Garden also printed 2 editions of a book about the public garden. And I think you can probably still buy it from the office. And there's a lot of information in there about the history and so on, and a lot of the questions that people brought up tonight. So that might be one place to go if you want some of your questions answered. And
Awesome.
needless to say, this is a project that's been worked on for quite some time and very carefully presented. And it's definitely a yes and a go ahead. And we should all be very proud that it's really going to go ahead. And we thank your board for agreeing as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great. Our next presentation is among my favorite things to do, which is Final Acceptance of Turmoil by Sobek. Sarah will present.
Thank you, Chair. I'm excited to present Turmoil for review for final acceptance into the city's collection. On the left, you can see the site for the artwork as it initially was, and on the right, the completed piece. The artist, Sobek, is a Boston native born and raised on Blue Hill Ave. The source of his style and a significant artistic influence for him is graffiti art. We commissioned him to create a new mural for the Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library in 2020. This commission approved his preliminary design. I apologize if you're getting any background noise, in the fall of 2021 and final design in May of this year. Commissioners may recall that the design went through a few iterations, and the final design was developed based on feedback from this commission, librarians and staff at the Roxbury branch, and the broader Nubian Square community. I'm going to read Sobek's narrative about Turmoil. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us tonight. He wrote, "My freedom of expression, the art of writing, must survive in this ever-changing universe, challenging the political norms of art. Fighting against the current to avoid suction into the black hole of what is and isn't art, who can and can't create, likes and contacts or actual discipline of craft. I'm infatuated with the turmoil." Commissioners can find the maintenance report from the artist in their folders, which includes material information. We've also included documentation about the construction of the frames. The piece is made of 4 frames, which are joined together and mounted on the wall, as well as some direct painting on the surrounding drywall. There were drawings from the final design package that we've included in the folders as well. Karen and I conducted fabrication checks at numerous points throughout the fabrication process and can attest that the artist followed the design as approved by this commission. As with all of our commissions, this project was only possible with the support and collaboration of many partners, including our colleagues at the Boston Public Library, the Public Facilities Department, and our entire Office of Arts and Culture, the librarians and staff at the Roxbury branch who generously gave of their time and their trust, the project architects for the renovation, UTIL, who provided a fantastic canvas and context for the artwork, the artist team who worked on the fabrication installation, and the community who took the time to engage with us and with Sobek as he designed and implemented this amazing work. And that is my presentation.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks so much for this. And it's very exciting to see. I can't remember if it was Bob or Aqua who said we want more Sobek, and I think we got it.
Yes, we did.
So very excited to see that his voice is really registering through in this piece in an important location in an important branch of the library right when you enter in. So I think it's a great piece. I'm very excited to endorse accepting it into our collection. So let's see if any other commissioners want to make a comment at this time.
I'd just like to say a thank you to the selection committee as well for doing something a little different on this piece and giving a first-time artist a city commission and working with them to create this magnificent piece. I've been to the library several times. I know it is well loved, and look forward to the future of this artist in Boston. I think, Kimberly, we were on that selection committee together. And I know that you had a particular interest in welcoming graffiti inside
Absolutely.
our city building. So congratulations to that selection committee as well.
Absolutely. I mean, without the advocacy, I think, from both of you on that committee, we wouldn't be looking at this artwork. So thank you.
Very exciting. Very
And
exciting.
thank you for your work, Sarah.
It's a pleasure, truly.
I hope I can make the motion if it's time.
Yes, we'll see if there's any public comment first.
Any
I'll-
other
I'll
public
hear the question.
comments for anyone that's in attendance? We'd love to hear from you. It's looking good, Kim.
No, hearing none. Kim, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would love to make a motion for the commission to accept the work by SOPAC entitled Turmoil for the Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Libraries.
Great, thank you, Kim. Do I hear a second?
Second,
That was Bob?
yes.
Okay, great. Bob is second. So I will read off names. I'm going to start with you, Kim, instead of you being last.
I know, I'm always like, yes.
I'm going to go in reverse here. Brian,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Hara,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Milo,
Yes.
Aqua,
Absolute yes.
and I'm an absolute yes as well. So the motion passes, and please, I hope someone will send congratulations to Sobek from all of us. Really wonderful.
That's what I wanted to say also. I thought that, you know, that I just love this process where we gave a little feedback and the mural changed into this beautiful dynamic mural. And I hope that I know he's not here to hear this tonight, but I hope that someone will register that with him.
Absolutely. I will text him as soon as I stop talking and let him know. Thank you all so much.
Great. Aqua, do you want to do the next?
Sure. Our next presentation for acceptance into the collection is Afro-Latin Music and Dance at Mozart Park in Jamaica Plain with artist Roberto Chao. And who is presenting this? Amber Torres. Thank you so much, Amber.
Thank you, Ekla. Afro-Latin Music and Dance was a community-driven mural project at Mozart Park in Jamaica Plain and a part of our transformative public art program. The mural depicts historical, international, and local figures and elements related to the main theme of Afro-Latin music and dance, with careful attention to gender and race. The mural is a historical and inclusive visual art document for appreciation and education to all Boston citizens. And if I did not mention it yet, it was led by the artist Roberto Chao in collaboration with the Hyde Square Task Force. First, Hyde Square Task Force and community members, the youth, consultants, and all that were volunteering to help out, prepped and refreshed the brick wall. And then Roberto worked with a local carpenter, Clayton Morera, to construct and attach 32 PVC panels and 4 wooden frames onto the brick wall in Mozart Park, measuring 142 feet. It's a big mural. Next slide, please. The mural was painted with heavy-duty Sherwin-Williams latex paint and is protected by 2 layers of Sherwin-Williams anti-graffiti. It was completed on November 25th, 2022, this year. Next slide, please. Maintenance recommendations are to wash all surfaces with light soap and water once a year. And I'm getting to the end of my presentation, but I was hoping, Sarah, if you could press play, I wanted to give everyone a better view of the mural in its totality. If it plays. No luck?
I'm not sure it's playing. It might be an issue with the PDF.
Oh, so sad. Well, that is more reason for everyone that's present in this meeting to make sure to take a trip out to Mozart Park in Jamaica Plain and see this mural in person. I will end the presentation now, but I know that Ken from the Hyde Square Task Force is present in the crowd. If you'd like to share anything, no pressure, but I'd like to end that right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Ken, would you like to say a few words? We'd love to hear from you.
Sure, just very few. First of all, I want to genuinely say that the input that we got from the commission several months ago was very valuable and really did make it a better mural. And I could go into details, but I won't. But, you know, it was a little tense there, but it all came out very well. And I think the team really, as a whole, appreciated it. And Roberto really did come around, and to see him, you know, his true mastery is bringing people in and engaging them. And over 30 artists worked on this. It's a very long piece, and it does feature both local and internationally known artists. And just about all the artists that are on the mural came together to the celebration, and many of them performed at the celebration. It was great to have Amber there. And so, yeah, we're very happy with it. There's a lot of, you know, all of the folks who worked on it, we're in a WhatsApp chat now, and we're constantly talking, and there's a lot of energy to create a curriculum. Already some schools have brought classes to look at it, and it's crying out for a curriculum, a multi-leveled curriculum. And so we're going to be putting some energy looking for you know, I don't think we need a lot of money, but to get some professional educators to work with us and coming up with a curriculum and making it a real educational piece. And it really fits in beautifully with the cultural district. And Roberto and Cornell Coley, who are two of the main folks, Roberto is in Uruguay and Cornell is in Ghana. So they sent me.
Ken, thank you so much. I know all of the commissioners probably feel really good hearing you say that their comments and suggestions made a big difference in the mural. That's something that I think we all love to do. And thank you so much. Please pass that on to Roberto as well. Other thoughts from commissioners? I think it looks wonderful.
I would just say that having been there a couple of times and seen it, I just really appreciate how like full of energy the mural is. I think it does like really wind up changing the atmosphere of that space. And just looking forward to doing more with Hyde Square Task Force and the Cultural District. And it's just really nice to see it there. So just some appreciation on how much vibrancy and energy it brings.
All right, then I'd like to open up the floor for any of our citizens that are here today that might like to make a comment or a suggestion. Well, not a suggestion, but a comment on the mural before we get to our motion. Okay. All right, well, seeing no hands, I'd like to entertain a motion. Could someone create a motion to accept this into our collection?
I'd like to move that we accept this into our collection, the mural depicting Afro-Latin Music and Dance, located in Jamaica Plain.
I'll second that.
Awesome. All right, let's do a call. All in favor, please say yes. Brian Hone.
Yes.
John Andres.
Yes.
Mark Pasnick.
Yes.
Bob Freeman.
Yes.
Tara.
Yes.
Camilo.
Yes.
Kim Pinder,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So that motion passes unanimously, and Hyde Square now has a fabulous mural created by many hands. Congratulations.
Can you clarify who seconded that?
I did, Mark.
Mark.
Yep. Okay, thank you, everybody. I think we're on to our fifth presentation of the day is, let's see, another mural for final acceptance, Natural Beauty by Jillian Rosati, commissioned by the Art District Boston for Ringer Park in Allston. Sarah will present.
Thank you. This project is a community-initiated commission. In 2021, Arts District Boston submitted an application to install a mural on a wall in Ringer Park in Allston. This is the wall. It is structurally sound, but it was not well maintained. The Boston Parks and Recreation Department approved it as a mural site in the spring of this year, at which point Arts District Boston began a robust community engagement process as well as a fundraising campaign. Aside from community meetings held during the design process, Ms. Rosati and Arts District Boston also hosted 4 community painting days where Allstonians and other Ringer Park visitors could join in a large-scale paint by numbers event. You can see a timeline here of various community engagements, and you all may remember from her presentation in August when the final design was improved. At the same time that Arts District Boston was running their community engagement, they were raising funds from several local organizations listed on the bottom of this slide. And you can see the final design that was approved by this commission in August at the top of the slide and the final mural at the bottom. The color palette did change significantly from the approved design. Based on the feedback that the artist received from the community end users and neighbors of the park, the change is really a positive, or seen as a positive. The majority of people using these courts are teens and adults, and the colors are reflective of a more mature audience while still maintaining the original playful spirit of the design. The mural is titled Natural Beauty, and I'll read the artist's narrative. Capturing the iconic autumn palette at Ringer Park, this mural design lends itself to the calming yet imaginative feel of the surrounding area. The design depicts 2 figures reading and drawing in an overgrown naturescape. A variety of large and small wildflowers, spiraled ferns, mushrooms, frogs, and a large tree stump decorate the scene. The colors were taken directly from the surrounding trees. The artist used bare masonry paint in a light yellow as a primer and bare outdoor masonry paint in sage, brick red, and orange for the mural itself, along with Montana gold spray paints in roughly a dozen colors. Finally, they used General Finishes brand low VOC, high gloss, flexible outdoor water-based varnish as the top layer. The varnish has built-in UV absorbers to protect the mural from breaking down in sunlight, while mildew sides retard mold and mildew growth. So obviously this wall, there were some concerns, and they used appropriate materials to ensure this will last and be easy for us to maintain over time. As with the other projects we've seen tonight, the maintenance report and supporting documents, including technical data sheets for the materials mentioned, have been added to your folder. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sarah. I'll open it up to see if there's any questions or comments from commissioners. I'm glad to see the artist be responsive to, I remember the conversation about the concerns with potential for water damage here. So it's great to see that they were responsive.
Yes, they really did their due diligence and cleaned and prepped the wall well and used really appropriate materials.
Great. Any commissioner comments?
I would just say it's quite a transformation from the previous wall to what's, what we see now. So just a congratulations to the artist and to everybody involved. I think there was a lot of community engagement for this piece.
Great.
It was really robust.
Okay, hearing no other comments, I wonder if any members of the public would like to speak? Oh, I'm seeing Kim type in absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Kim. Any members of the public? Hearing none, I will open the floor to a motion. Who would like to make a motion here?
I can make a motion for this. I'll make a motion to approve final acceptance of Natural Beauty by artist Jillian Rosati at Ringer Park in Alston.
Great,
I'll
thank
second that.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, John. So I will read off the list, and if you agree with the motion, please say yes. Aqua,
Yes.
Camilo,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cara,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes. Congratulations to the artist and to the whole team and the community who helped make this happen.
Thank you.
Great. And special thanks again to Sarah for all your work on this one. I know this one involved you quite a lot. All right, the last up for business, Aqua, do you want to run this one?
I was going to say, Mark, since I wasn't at the last meeting when you looked at the signage for the first time, perhaps you want to.
Oh, okay, I can do that. Sure.
I'll just be catching up today.
All right. So our final presentation for review is Signage for the Embrace by Hank Willis Thomas and the Moratorium on Artwork, Plaques, and Signage for the Boston Common. Karen will provide context for our review.
Thank you, Mark. As you remember from our last meeting, we reviewed signage proposals for the Embrace. After that conversation, the public art team reconnected with Mass and Embrace Boston. I shared suggestions based both on your direction and some language we drafted on the Project Art Committee a few years ago with particular input from Dr. Brandon Terry and Barry Gaither at that time. Embrace Boston and Mass have prepared a proposal for today that incorporates most of those suggestions and I think takes the narrative even further in a really beautiful way so that passersby can understand what an important artwork and history they're in the presence of. This, unlike our earlier presentation today, is in addition to this park, so will also require the lifting of the moratorium. Also, we did share this presentation today with colleagues from the Commission for Persons with Disabilities here at City Hall, but we had been working sort of up to the last minute with this and did only get it this morning, so I don't know that they had a chance to review. And I will pass to Jonathan Evans of Mass Design Group and Denise Korn from Embrace Boston to present. And I believe Amari Paris-Jeffries may have just joined us and other team members are here and I'm sure will contribute as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Great to be here tonight to kind of bring up to date on where we are and some of the exciting evolutions to the signage here as we present this for final review. So if we go to the next slide here, again, I think I want to build off of our last conversation to understand a little bit more about the evolution of the form of the sculpture. Form of the markers themselves. Again, that has evolved as we've been able to do more outreach and engagement with various advocacy groups, the disability community, and that has led us to some refinements as well to the approach to the sign language, the language on the sign, and how we deal with accessibility there. And then at the same time, I also want to talk a little bit about the digital experience in the app as well, that is part of this signage. So the next slide here is an overall kind of map of the memorial, and you can see again we took your comments into consideration and identifying the 3 locations for the markers. Again, that was something that was discussed and approved at the previous meeting. And again, since that meeting, if you go to the next slide, I can talk about this very briefly. We've had focus groups. This one here was with the Perkins School for the Blind. Again, the idea there is this is a once in a lifetime, really unprecedented type of a project. So understanding how we approach accessibility was very paramount in dealing with how we users engage the plaza, the sculpture itself, and then the opportunity for these signage markers to be part of that experience. If you go to the next slide, I think that really kind of hits some of the key conclusions here. What you can see in that image above is, on the upper left, is initially we thought having one sign that would have both the written context as well as the Braille text and a sort of tactile relief map all on one surface. You can see in the other photo a user engaging that. And I think one thing that we learned from them is that the signage, the best location for Braille is on a surface kind of sloping away from the reader. And the next image shows some precedent work that works towards that more ergonomic approach. So if you look on the next slide here, I keep going. We have, so again, this is along the Braille Trail in Watertown. And you can see, again, the users can actually engage on that sort of reverse surface, the Braille information. So, and this helped us evolve the sign such that we have one plane that includes the kind of written text, and then another plane entirely that includes that sends on the Braille text. And again, if we go to the next slide here, again, this is information from another focus group we had in mid-November with the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. Again, this also reaffirmed a lot of our approach as well. And again, we presented all of this to, submitted all this as well to the state as part of a MAB review of the project. And I believe we sent this over to you guys. I know we sent the final version this morning. I believe this was sent initially about a week ago as well. So if we go to the next slide, this kind of shows the evolved kind of shape of the form. So again, you see that black would be the asphalt surface along the path bringing you to the sculpture of the plaza. And you can see the sort of two planes. One will have the written text, the other reverse plane will have the Braille content and the more accessible translation of that content. And so if you can go to the next slide. So this here kind of reflects where we've landed with regards to the layout of that front panel. So kind of, again, we appreciated the dialogue and the sort of iterative process of working through this. And I think we think we've gotten a lot clearer and stronger with how this is all kind of coming together. So kind of starting left to right on the left side of the sign here, you kind of have this acknowledgement of the artist and of the piece, the Embrace 2022. Again, accreditation to the artist team commissioned by the City of Boston and Embrace Boston, as well as information about the sculpture of the plaza, noting that as part of the collection of the City of Boston and the link to where they can explore more, and also some acknowledgement of key entities in the making of Embrace Boston. And then moving to the right, again, a pretty prominent section for, stay on that side, please. Yeah, just for the what this piece is about. And I think this has been a pretty productive dialogue working with your team around what we want to say here. What is the depth of content to provide? I think some acknowledgement that that Martin and Creta met here, fell in love here. Acknowledgement of this piece as a call to action, and the sculpture of citing it as well within the plaza. If it's helpful, I can read the text. I know it might be kind of small on the screen here. So I'll say that, again, the story began in Boston. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King met in Boston in 1952. The Embrace is a memorial to their love and leadership. Inspired by a photograph of the Kings embracing, it reflects the power of collective action, the role of women in the freedom movement, and the forging of solidarity out of mutual empathy and vulnerability. Beneath the artwork, the 1965 Freedom Plaza honors civil rights and social justice leaders active in the Greater Boston from 1950 to 1975. Many of them marched alongside Dr. King in 1965 when he led a crowd of 22,000 from Roxbury to the Parkman Bandstand, just steps from the memorial. In his speech, Dr. King called on Boston to confront racism and economic injustice. The Embrace and the 1965 Freedom Plaza are reminders of the King's high ideals born from struggle to foster a beloved community. So yeah, I think that's we're excited by that language, and it actually references language that we worked with on the initial call to action back in 2018, as well as other texts, as Karen mentioned, was developed with the partnership of the city as well as other key stakeholders there. And then again, finally on the right there, you see the QR code, which is a link to the digital experience and a more sort of immersive understanding of the piece, and as well as the heroes that we're trying to honor here. And if you go to the next slide, slide 10, this basically takes that's much of that same content, and the intent here is to translate that into Braille. So what you'll actually see, that pink text there is actually just there for kind of position only. That'll all be translated into Braille, such that users will be able to sort of understand, again, what they are going to be engaging as part of this piece, as well as a literal kind of tactile relief map of the plaza. And again, also a link to the QR code to launch stories. And again, that is building off of the precedent that our research with our focus groups have said makes sense in terms of what to apply, how much text to apply, and where to locate it in terms of accessibility and Braille. So next slide. Again, I think this is just, yeah. So again, this is basically showing kind of what that text would be in text that would be translated into Braille, which again really allows visitors to really understand and sort of get a sense of what the feeling, what the sort of experience of the space wants to be for those that can be visually impaired. And finally, the next slide here is a few screenshots from the app experience that is being developed to accompany the piece. So again, you click the QR code, it links you to this, where you can actually begin to hear audio stories about the Kings of Boston, as well as learn about the 65 heroes that are being honored as well here on the plaza. And I think with that, I will open it up for conversation. But again, I think it's been a great process to be able to work and iterate through this, and yeah, I think we've tried to strike a balance between providing some didactic information for people to understand what this is all about, honor the art, and also provide this way in for further knowledge and engagement with the digital experience.
Great. Well, thank you, Jonathan. And thank you to the whole team who's continued to work with us so much on this. It's such an important piece in our collection and the city's history. That's really wonderful that you're spending the effort and being so responsive and so supportive of what the commission needs out of this process as well. So thank you so much for that. I will say, reading the text today, I think you guys made a slam dunk on the story. I really feel like even the conversational version that we had earlier in the week, it's come so far beyond that and tells all of the things that I think we were asking for, which is, why Boston, why this place, and these kinds of elements of educating the public about it. And I think it's far more elegant than what we had said in the format of it. So I think it's a beautiful piece that tells everything that it needs to. And the second comment I want to make is about the panel itself. I just think it's very elegant now. I think maybe by streamlining some of the way the information is presented, it's become a stronger interface and really very legible. I think it looks great. There is one issue which I see that still runs counter to our policies, which is the organization name. And I have a solution maybe that I think could be a better way of doing it and also not in violation of our policies, which is to place the Boston Foundation as part of the commissioning organizations instead of in the founders section. I think it would, because we have a little bit more leeway with the commissions to include organizations there. And I think that would, obviously they have an enormous role in the making of this piece that we want to have recognized. And we think that would maybe, or at least I think that would be a better place to acknowledge their significant contribution here without sort of stepping on our, what we're really trying to thread the needle here with our policies to bring recognition to some key people and key organizations. But I think that in my mind would sort of solve that threaded needle in a way that we can say is still within our guidelines and doesn't open the floodgates to all sorts of corporations and organizations expecting to be named and everything. But because they're such a key partner in this, I think there would be some way to recognize them in that piece. But beyond that one comment, I think everything is really fantastic. I'm so pleased to see how far it's come and the way it looks. And even the 2022, I think that Denise, you got that. It looks great in this version. So thank you, everybody. Other Commissioner Jonathan, your thoughts on that maybe move of the name?
I completely appreciate the sort of needle you're trying to thread here, and I would just sort of want to defer to Amari on that. But I appreciate that that there's a lot of logic there.
Is Amari on? I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's on.
Yes, he's here.
I was responding in emojis. Sorry.
I saw that, and I wasn't sure how to directly translate a heart emoji.
Yeah, I think it does thread the needle in both.
Okay.
Mark, in both the acknowledgement and simultaneously not having any person's bodies or regulations being put in a pretzel, and that feels right to kind of still acknowledge the importance of them as an institution, but not moving to that space where it's compromising. So I think you hit the mark. I think it's a wonderful idea.
So yeah, we can make that edit, and I would agree with your earlier comment that I think as we've learned more and understand more about the users, the change in the form factor has really helped to simplify and make the process of organizing this information much more elegant. So it's been a nice process.
I just want to say thank you for leading me on a crazy journey with this one, and I'm really happy that with the response. It's been definitely a back and forth effort here. So thank you.
I should open.
I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead.
I noticed that nowhere in this text, at least, is Martin Luther King Jr. referred to as a reverend, but he came here to preach and his ideals were born of his Christian walk. So I'm curious if that's where that decision came from. And is that where you want to land? It just feels like that whole part of his life has been erased. And I'm curious why.
I think illuminating Reverend Doctor is a great addition. Equa. I think it is probably an gross oversight, but I think that feels and think sounds right and kind of honors really even why he was here in the first place in divinity school, getting that finished. Well, he already had his divinity degree, but getting that doctor in divinity to go along with his ordained space. So I think that sounds right. We should add it.
I thank you for that. And, also his relationship with 12th Baptist was as a youth minister. And so I think that's very much a part of his, why he's a role model to many people in Boston. So thank you for being willing to consider that.
Just for clarity, Ikwa, does adding the title Reverend answer that for you?
I think that would go a long way, yes, because I noticed that right away.
I want to make sure we are.
Yeah, I noticed that right away. And I would also say, if I'm not the writer, and I don't want to, because I wasn't here last week, I don't want to get into too much nitpicky, but the last sentence about the King's high ideals born from struggle, a lot of them were also born from their religious backgrounds, their study of Gandhi. And so struggle is, I'm not sure that they all.
That language came from Brandon in particular.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't want to get nitpicky about it because I wasn't here and we're so close.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, Ekwa, I can speak to that for a minute.
Okay, thank you, Denise.
It was not present earlier in the language, and Brandon and several of the other reviewers that we spoke with in sort of refinement were feeling that the notion that this was not an easy path was missing. And so this came from the original language that was used to talk about the work that resolved in the inspiration for the monument. So, and it's tied to the Freedom Plaza commission and the advisory group that did the selection of the heroes on the plaza. So there are many reverends honored on the plaza, and there's a real presence of the 12th Baptist Church in the audio stories, with both of the reverends from 12th Baptist voicing light on what was happening during that period of time. So I do think you'll feel happy to see the presence of the church and the role of the church, and I hope that helps sort of flesh it out a little bit further for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, other comments from commissioners?
I just want to say I really appreciate all of the work that's been done to get this to where it is. I think it looks really, really good. I think the text reads really well and says what needs to be said, but also plainly in a way that's really accessible. And then it's also great to see the screenshots of the app. I think that's just helpful for us to just visualize, and that's super exciting. I just wanted to say, Mark, on your suggestion, I think now that I'm seeing this with the hierarchy of information, like for me personally, I don't mind seeing the Boston Foundation, I think partially because of the framing, like having commissioned from the collection and then this list of founders, I feel like doesn't feel like a kind of like logo sort of ad funder thing, the way that sometimes we see that. I feel like it reads like, you know, it's a body that's been a part of the infrastructure that's gotten this to where it is. But I also appreciate your suggestion. I think that would work well also. But I just think as I looked at it with fresh eyes, I was not as concerned.
Okay. Other commissioners' comments?
I guess quickly though, before we take any next steps, I do want to maybe take a half a second to just bring us back to the sort of the founders and this sort of again this needle we're trying to thread here. I don't know, Mara, if you wanted to kind of chime in around just again how we position TBF.
Yeah, you know, like the ideal would be TBF in the way that it's formatted here. You know, for me, what's the most important is to acknowledge the foundation as a key founding contributor of the initiative. And, you know, I want us to feel good in the way that is most legally possible, include them as an important asset and party to the creation of this initiative. And so initially I am in support of them being listed as founders, but I just want them to be acknowledged, most importantly.
Yeah, I guess my logic is that I find the power of what you've been talking about with the founders representing a kind of diverse group of people that have created this sculpture. It feels strange to put a corporation, you know, it's a nonprofit corporation, of course, but it does a lot of good in the world, but it feels to me like it's the wrong place for it, as well as that it opens up the potential for a Pandora's box of corporate sponsors in other locations demanding this and starting to ask for this from us, which is something I don't think we want to do. This is a special exception because the organization has been so central to the making of this piece. It's not just that they're funders or not that they're, you know, that they're clearly central, which is why I think that they're part of the commissioning body in my mind. It places 3 entities or organizations as commissioners, and then it has people as founders, you know, humans with stories that we want to foreground as part of this. So that's where I think personally, I think it's a little bit clearer from an organizational and human structure. And then I also think that it threads that needle better from the perspective of a future wave of potential requests from all sorts of organizations in this regard. And it's something that we don't want to break down on with you know, future artwork and memorials. So I don't know, Cara, how do you feel about it with that comment?
Yeah, I think it's just it feels like such a unique situation because of what you were just saying, right? Like it's been a part of it. I guess in some ways it is like, I think it's correct that the TBF is also a commissioning body. But I feel like for me, I've been thinking about it as like the infrastructure that was like a key component. I see also what you're saying about a list of people. So I don't know. I think maybe your suggestion of commissioning is a good one. I'd be curious what other folks think.
Other commissioners have thoughts?
I think it's a nice compromise and still places them in a position of real importance as commissioners of the piece.
Other commissioners' thoughts?
I support that. I think I support the Mark's recommendation.
I'm in agreement with Mark as well. I mean, I also would imagine that once the QR code is scanned, there will be a little bit more information on the founders in the site that it launches. It's not an app, it's a site, which links, I imagine, to the Boston Foundation and further information, which is just the way we all find out about everything these days, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Camila. It is a site, not an app. One thing we want to do is avoid having people download things and that nature. But it doesn't link back to the foundation's. It links to Embrace Boston's information, and I think in this presentation, Jonathan, Denise, I think we have some of the pieces that you kind of could see what the app looks like, you know, and really creating this eyes up digital experience. And I think the continuation of all of our commitment to inclusion on this memorial is the perspective to translate this incredible work of art in this context of the city in 4 different languages. And so 5, right? And so if you definitely include sign as the first language that you experience it, but and then English, but then additional languages to include Portuguese, help me out.
Spanish and Mandarin.
Spanish and Mandarin. So five
Yes.
language experience on this and eyes up digital experience. We don't want people looking on their phones while they get what we're trying to refer to as a 4D experience. We want people to see it. We want people to smell the embrace as the patina changes during the seasons. We want them to touch it. It's a high touch memorial. Hank talks about being in the center of the hug, and we want the people to experience that. And then we want them to have an auditory experience that contextualizes Boston, in the language that they feel most comfortable in. And so there's also a modality in which folks who are visually impaired will be able to experience the digital experience in the way that the functionality of this will allow them to engage.
I really appreciate the work that you did on those focus groups with sight impaired people, and I think it's a really elegant solution. I'm wondering, do you think that there's an elegant solution to letting people know that this information is available in those other languages?
Yes, Echo, I can speak to that also. The interface of the app, we're working with art processors who has extensive expertise in digital accessibility. And so the user interface of the app, which I can't show you yet because it's all pulled apart and in development, but this screen grab shows that the translations are available right at the top of the screen as you move into the app, and it's very intuitive. And because it's a web-based app interface, anybody who is sight impaired will be coming with who's using a handheld device will have translations and things that they already have set up. We understand from our research as well with our processors that there are special apps and devices that the sight impaired use all the time to just, you know, be in the world. And so they'll bring that to the app, and the app is ready to receive all of those different interfaces that help them access the information.
I guess the question I'm asking is, looking at this signage, there's nothing that tells me that there's information in other languages available. Not once you get on the site, but here on the location, scan this code to launch stories. I'm assuming these stories are in those multiple languages. Do we want to let people know that, so that someone who reads Mandarin comes along, they might say, well, you know, is there a way to let them know that that information is available, that you've gone that extra step of welcoming that beloved community that speaks many different languages right here on the site?
Specifically on the sign, instructing that, yeah.
That's I appreciate that comment. That's a fair question or comment. I think I mean, I guess my only response to that is I think the idea of a QR code in some ways is ubiquitous enough to sort of translate across languages, and I think the hope is that that becomes the acknowledgement that we are trying to be inclusive, and going to that portal would allow you to see that. But I completely understand that, yes, the scan that code should be in 12 different languages, but I think that the only just practical consideration is just that the realities of spatial constraints, and that if there's always gonna be, well, what about that 13th language or that 14th language? So it becomes tricky to be how you draw that line. But I appreciate the comment, and I certainly agree with what you're saying, the sentiment behind what you're saying. So.
I know that Keith Mahoney from TBF is here as well. You know, I think Keith, I don't know if you have a perspective. I know you've been engaged in different pieces.
And I apologize for joining late, and I missed some of the discussion, so forgive me if I'm missing a big part. But I think I'm not sure if I understand. I heard, but I'm not sure I fully understand the distinction being made between moving the Boston Foundation from a founder, because the role of the foundation in both institutional support and seed funding from the very inception of this work was a founding body of work. And I feel I understand why a slippery slope or a precedent argument may be made, but I don't think that would apply to the Community Foundation of Greater Boston that's been here for over 115 years. So I understand if the commission has already made a decision, but I would think that we would be appropriately listed as a founder rather than a commissioner of the artwork.
Well, I mean, for my question, it comes up that we're very, controlled by our policies, and we lay them out for a certain reason. And actually the founders has been a sort of challenging way for us to get the names of a number of people who are associated with this. I sort of see the commissioner as an even more noble position to be in. So I think it doesn't detract from the recognition of the Boston Foundation to have it in that location. And I think it's we have more leeway with the commissioners in our policies. It's sort of more open-ended as to who can constitute an organization that commissioned the work. So that's why I propose that as a kind of way of handling both, of recognizing the deep contribution of an organization like the City of Boston, for instance. I think we would want to be listed as founders too, and there's a number of organizations. So it's sort of like I'm a little bit worried about that, not just the precedent, but actually the factual nature of this, that there's quite a lot of founders, if we're trying to be comprehensive, that could be considered part of this, including our art commission and parks and others. So I think it's better with the organizations as a group, as it's sort of a set of bodies that have set this in motion, and that the names of the folks that are listed here are being recognized sort of special human contributions instead of organizational ones. So that's my logic, and I don't know if other commissioners would necessarily agree. I don't think it's meant to be a slight to the Boston Foundation. In fact, I again think commissioning and sending a piece into the world is probably the highest, it's even ranked higher on the list of information here. So that's part of my logic here.
Thank you for detailing that, Mark. It's just a little bit at a disadvantage not knowing the policy and having this come at this point in the project. So I haven't, been able to review the differences in your bylaws between commissioners and founders.
Sorry, founders is a word that your group has proposed as a way to sort of get around, or maybe not get around, but to try to work within our requirements, which have been part of the discussion for quite some time and are publicly available. I think that we're all trying to work towards the same goal, which is to, within the restrictions, find a way to acknowledge an organization that's done so much for this piece.
Okay. Thank you.
Other commissioners' comments or public comments? Hearing none, I guess we could entertain a motion now. Do we want to separate this one issue from other issues, or, because I think broadly we're in agreement to accept it. I think we proposed two changes. One is the introduction of the honorific term reverend, probably at the beginning of the text. And the other is the moving the Boston Foundation to the section of the acknowledgements that's commissioned by. So do I hear a motion on the floor?
Mark, could I ask for one clarification?
Sure.
I think for consistency, I just want to make sure that it's okay to introduce Reverend in the beginning and then subsequently refer to him as Dr. King.
I believe so, but I don't.
I would be happy with that.
Okay, I just crossing my T's here.
No, that's a good question. I would be happy with that. I don't know how other people feel, but I would be happy with that. But I still hope you all would consider letting people know that there are multiple languages available on this signage. And I think you have the space to do it. So I'd be curious to hear what else you're thinking about that, or if you're considering it at all, or if you would consider it at all.
Is it a question of how many? We would need to do a lot versus just being able to add Spanish or.
Yeah, I mean,
or that might be a question for you from a city angle.
We have looked at a lot of precedents of accessibility and signage through this process. And it's a very slippery slope. I mean, all of the languages that we've considered take into account, these sort of broader demographics and communities, but there are many, many ways to slice and dice what languages should go on the sign. And then it requires us, these are audio recordings. So we decided to use our research to identify the groups that would address the largest populations here.
I think maybe I didn't, maybe I'm not being clear, not to have a lot of different languages, but just the ones that you have represented on your site, the ones that are available for people.
How many would those be?
And I thought someone said 4. Well,
there's three plus English, and the entire site is not translated yet, and we're looking to actually in the future potentially introduce some audio that is just for different audiences. really trying to learn from best practices around how language is introduced in a multicultural manner. And due to the ability to be flexible with that, I mean, I guess we could explore this, Ekwa. I hear where you're coming from. And maybe there's a way we could introduce, I'll just speak to your note about their space.
Oh, yeah.
Simple is hard, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I would put that information. I don't know.
Well, I guess the first thing is if we're in agreement on that before we get to like where it goes, is do you think it's important for visitors to the site to know that they are able to get translated information on the site? I may be the only one that feels that way, but I'm putting it out there. So I'm curious if other people think that it's important in a city like Boston to be very clear that we are addressing that need to speak in various languages and give information in various languages.
Could we maybe, in making a motion, suggest this or recommend it, and then ask for this to be worked through with staff? Would that work? And if it seems like staff agrees that it can't be done or can be done, then we.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I will say, like, just based on the city, like we don't have a policy for how languages show up on permanent public art signs right now. So I think part of me feels like the fact that there's going to be a QR code there is enough information for people to then be able to access the translation, because people will see that and know what to do with it. But we're happy. I think we could definitely like talk that through and just make sure that that makes sense. But that's just my reaction right now. Like, it's not a standard that we hold to other things like this, that we would have things translated in several different lines on the permanent signage. So I just want to caution against like kind of opening a whole conversation that we don't actually have a kind of practice for right now.
Yeah, if I'm the only one that it's important to, then I think we should just table it and just move on.
So not included in the motion.
Yeah, I think
we can encourage, we can just right now say, please look at that. And if it seems like it might work, then do it. If it doesn't, then.
Yeah, and I will just, like I said earlier, I'll acknowledge, I appreciate the question. And I think certainly this memorial, all the discussion around it has prompted a lot more questions about what is equitable and what is just and what we should be doing with things like this. So I think the fact that we're having this conversation is good. And yeah, I think to echo what I said before and what Kara just said, I think our hope is that that QR code, which is pretty ubiquitous and translates languages, becomes a sign to get people there. And then from the home screen of the app, there are the options to go to different languages and whatnot. So I think that's our way to acknowledge that. But I understand that it's still, we're a little bit in uncharted waters. There's no completely foolproof solution here.
Okay.
Great. So I may suggest we make a motion, and I could begin the motion and see if there's any edits to it. But first of all, I think we want to be open enough that, whether it's the Reverend, Reverend, REV period, I think those are things that, the staff could work through with you in terms of the introduction of anything like that. What's best practice? I don't think we have to decide now, but I think you maybe do your research and determine what the best direction is, and then just check it with staff. So my motion would be to accept the embrace signage as presented today with two provisions to be reviewed with staff. The first is the introduction of the honorific Reverend. And the second is to move the Boston Foundation name to the section with language such as commissioned by the City of Boston and embrace Boston with the Boston Foundation. So that's the motion. I wonder if someone would be willing to second that motion.
I'll second that motion. Yes, I'll second it.
Thank you, Bob. Let me read off the list, and if you agree with the motion, please say yes. Actually, I lost my list here. 1 second. Well, I know Aqua's first.
Yes.
Camilo,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cara,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kim. Maybe Kim had to step off. So, and I am a yes as
Oh,
well.
I'm here. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Kim. And I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes. And then I think our second action, we need a second motion, which is to lift the moratorium. And I think maybe the language of this probably needs to be nuanced, and we need some help just to make sure we don't get into any legal binds again, like last time. So does somebody want to try to make this motion? Or maybe we could have some help from staff.
I can, so I just looked back at our previous motion. I think we want to exempt this again and not lift
Yes,
the
that's right.
moratorium.
Okay.
So I can make a motion to exempt the embrace signage from the moratorium on monuments in Boston Common for the purposes of installation on the 3 gateway markers. And then this motion shall not be interpreted to exempt from the moratorium any aspects of the work that have not been previously approved by the Boston Art Commission.
Great. All right. That's very comprehensive. You had that
Nice
in your
job.
back pocket.
I will second that.
All right. All right. So thank you very much, Brian, for a thoughtful motion here. I'll read off your names. If you agree with the motion, please say yes. Aqua,
Yes.
Camilo,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cara,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kim. She may have.
Yes.
Okay, great. We got you in before you had to run. And I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes. So both motions have passed. This means the pieces with 2 small revisions can be produced and set in motion. Keith, I see your hand is raised.
Sorry, thank you, Mark. Just wanted to, the first motion, that wasn't exact language because you used the word with instead of and. I just checking, is that signage going to be reviewed by staff, or is that the
Yeah,
exact?
that's so you can have a conversation with staff about that.
Thank
That
you.
might be a suggested way of linking the 2 organizations. But I think that, and I said with language, I think the actual motion says with language such as.
Great, thank you.
You have
Just
some
wanted to
wiggle room to
clarify that.
discuss exactly how you want to
Yeah.
set that language.
I think.
Okay. I think that, you know, I know there's a priority here in terms of speed. So please, you know, work with staff as quickly as you can. That's why we want to do it with staff, because we don't want to have to wait for another cycle for us. So I think Cara and Karen can help you with that.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, I think that we have one last order of business, which is adjournment. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Sorry, before you do that, Mark.
Oh, yes, sorry, Karen, you said you needed to make an announcement.
Yeah, so right now we are not planning on January. We have a January 10th meeting would be our regular meeting. But as we did last year, we're not planning on holding a meeting at that time right now. So we wouldn't have our regular January meeting as we've done in the past, since it's so close to the holidays and folks usually want a break. And Mark and Aqua and I have talked about that already. So just wanted to share that out.
Great, and I'm seeing that there's, Tim Mitchell has made a comment about a potential way to integrate language. Again, that could be a discussion with staff later. I don't think we moved that in particular, but it would be something that could be explored with staff moving forward. So I think next time we do meet, we will be celebrating the fact that the sculpture will have been unveiled. And I did walk by it the other day and found it to be incredibly powerful. in the space, and really look forward to seeing it open to the public when that happens, and seeing how I believe that Boston will really be charged by this special work on the Common. So thank you to everybody who's made that possible and has worked so hard and has been so collaborative with us as well. Really appreciate the way that this has developed. Camila, you have a question?
I do. Thank you everyone
Oh, you said
for your
double.
time. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there may be another speaker on. And
Sorry, might need to mute.
Can you still hear me?
yes, but you're echoing.
I think she's in the room with someone else who has.
Amara, I need to mute. Okay.
You're muted, Camila.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. January 10th is not happening. Is there an opportunity to call a special meeting? I know we still have to move through the formality of transferring ownership and the BAC accepting the piece. And from my understanding, there is a time frame on that. I just wanted to know if there was an opportunity to call a special meeting in the occasion, since we're not meeting on January 10th.
Karen, I guess that's a good question for you. So when would that normally happen, the transfer of ownership? I don't think it had to be
before.
Okay, I'm not a lawyer, so maybe I won't.
Today, right? For projects that were installed previously, so we don't have an exact timeline for that. I think it generally depends on when all the work is concluded, all the materials are received, and when we're complete on that on our end, then we would put it before the chair and vice chair to be added to the agenda.
Okay, I want, in the occasion that timeline lines up, I just wanted to know that there was the opportunity to call a special meeting.
It's something we can propose to the chair and vice chair.
We could certainly consider it if there's an urgency to it. It's not something we do very often, and we did that with you guys because we wanted to move things along. And if there's a real urgency to it, we can consider it for sure. Just want to make sure that, we'll cooperate and help if there's a real urgent reason to do that. But it is hard to sometimes get the commission together unless there's, we need at least a week's notice, and we'll also in order to post the meeting and that sort of thing. And then we also need to make sure that there's enough of us to form a quorum that are available for it. So you could work with staff and propose something if there's a need for it.
I think the hiccup around that is the understood opening to the public on the 23rd of January without the transference of ownership would mean that the foundation and Embrace Boston would be responsible and liable for the memorial without the transfer. So if we wait until the February 10th day, then we'll need to keep the memorial sequestered under fence until that date, because otherwise we will we'll have to extend our insurance beyond the date of transfer to the date of transfer in order for it to be open to the public.
Mario, this is something we might be able to look at our insurance for, because that might not be necessary. I think at this point our insurance would cover it in that case, but maybe we can look at that.
Yeah, I'd encourage you all to talk, and if we need something special, we'll do it. I'm sure we'll figure out.
Could I just propose that people don't remove the hold on the 10th in case there is a special meeting needed? And since it might already be on your schedules, commissioners, that if you could hold on to that until staff could come up with a solution. So that is a backup plan for not having a special meeting, and it could just be one issue at that 10th meeting.
Well, let's take it the other way around, which is have you guys talk, and then we'll figure out what we need to do to be responsive. I understand you want to reserve our schedules. That's great, but let's see what's needed and even what the time frame is for realistic transfer. And also, I didn't think that we needed to vote in order for the transfer to happen, but maybe I'm wrong about
I think they're talking about final acceptance, right?
Okay. Well, that has to happen before transfer happens.
That is. So I think the issue of insurance might be something we can have more conversation about.
Okay.
Whether our insurance covers it, because I believe our insurance might already cover it.
Okay, well, I think if you can work it out, we'll figure out how to get the commission together in a appropriate way.
I'm happy to take all the conversations offline and, you know, staff can communicate about it. One last question is if I know, previous council is no longer with the BAC. I didn't know if the commission, if there was a status as to what your council looked like at the moment.
This, you could take these questions offline. This isn't for the commissioners. I think the staff can help you with that question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we just don't, we're not the legal advisors here. We're sort of the commission body, but I think these are all questions that you and staff could have a meeting this week, determine what needs to be done, and then staff can inform us and we'll set up the appropriate response. All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And again, thank you to the Boston Foundation, to Embrace Boston, to Mass Design Group, to Hank Willis Thomas, to every one of the players who's been cooperating with and helping usher this along and putting a lot of energy and force into making this piece a reality in Boston. I think it's gonna knock the socks off of everybody when they do see it. And so we'll make sure that there's a way that they can see it on the 23rd, however that works out. So thank you, everybody. And our last, we did not vote yet on adjournment.
No. I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ekwa. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I'll read off the list. If you're in agreement, please say yes. Ekwa?
Yes.
Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Clara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I think Kim has left already, but I am a yes as well. So we are now officially adjourned. Thank you, staff and commissioners, for everything today. It was a fascinating meeting with a lot of good progress and acceptance of some great pieces into our collection. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
And I'll see you
Congratulations.
sometime. I'll see many of you, I guess, for in January for the opening on the 23rd and
13th, right?
oh, sorry, 13th. Oh, I
And
think,
then-
right. I think it's the
Somebody
13th.
said 23rd.
Yeah, somebody said the 23rd, but I thought it was the 13th.
It's
Okay.
the 13th.
Yes. Okay. Great. So we'll see many of you there, hopefully, to celebrate the end of a long and wonderful process. Thanks all. Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.